Hi, welcome everybody to this month's episode of Cronin's Corner. I am your host, State Senator John Cronin. Thank you so much for joining us. This month, I am pleased to have as our guest Meagen Donoghue, who is the Executive Director of the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority, the FRA. Meagen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. There's so much going on in the city right now, and the FRA is a key player in the revitalization and so many economic development and housing efforts. But before we get into that good stuff, could you talk a little bit about how you got involved in community development and what your background is?
Sure. So I worked for 13 years in higher education, and that is like a microcosm of a community. When I left higher education, I went and got my degree in urban planning at UMass Amherst, and I ended up being a town planner in several communities throughout the Commonwealth. But I found that it wasn't for me, and when the FRA position opened up, I knew it was because it was more community focused, more economic development focused.
What did you like about planning, and what did you not like about the planning part of it? Because a lot of what you do now is kind of putting that footprint together.
For sure. I love working with the community, and I also like being a resource, and I like connecting people. What I didn't like was the technical aspects. I do like reading plans and things like that, but then going through zoning bylaws and trying to decipher that and explain it to people, that it was a grind. So I really like the community connection piece, and that's what I saw this position as, and that's why I applied, and thankfully I got it.
And what else drew you to the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority?
Well, I love Fitchburg, and I would often drive through Fitchburg because I live in Worcester. Yeah. But my parents live in New Hampshire, and my brother does as well. And I would often drive through on Route 12, and yeah. I thought it was a great community, great bones. And I also, when I studied urban planning, I had a focus on preservation, so I love the downtown and the historical nature of it, and I saw a lot of potential, and I didn't see it as a detriment at all, and I saw the potential.
Yeah. Yeah. You told a great story before we got on the air, but you were at the Community Resource Fair last night,
yes.
And somebody came up to the table and said, "What's the FRA? I've never heard of you." So for those who are unaware of what the FRA is and its mission, what does the FRA do?
Sure. So unbelievable, but we've been around since 1964, and we were created by the mayor. However, we're a separate body. We're independent from the municipality. So what that means is we run more like a corporation, yeah. Even though we are a government agency. So we don't report to the mayor, nor do we report to the state in terms of oversight. What we do for oversight is have a board of directors. It's a 5-member board, 4 appointed by the mayor, 1 appointed by the governor. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we have an urban renewal plan that looks at an urban renewal district with goals and objectives for redeveloping that area. And
how many redevelopment authorities are in Massachusetts? Right? You say 1964, I'm thinking Lyndon Johnson, yes. Great Society.
Yes.
Can you tell us of the history of kind of broader redevelopment authorities and how they came to be? So
there's been the whole concept of urban renewal since that time, and mm-hmm. probably prior to, since post-war America. And there's urban renewal plans throughout the whole country. Yep. So Massachusetts wasn't alone in that. And I can't tell you how many are across the Commonwealth, but there's a number. And they're mostly in your gateway cities, yeah. For the most part. But there are some smaller communities that happen to, like Athol has one. So they're here and there throughout, and I think the time is now to use your redevelopment authorities in your communities, because we are supposed to be a tool for buying and selling properties, redeveloping, because we have the powers to do that separate from the city. We work in partnership with them, yep. But we have the capability of doing things without the red tape.
And you've got some special powers, right? Yeah. Can you talk about eminent domain and the things that the FRA is able to do that is outside of the city's purview?
Right. So we don't have to go through a lot of the procurement when we buy and sell properties like the city does. Like you said, we also have the power of eminent domain. I do want to preface that by saying that is our last resort. Right. A lot of people get nervous when they hear that. Yeah. And for a city, eminent domain is for safety's sake, right? But we can do it when we have the mission of buying a property or taking a property for that matter. we've, in my time with the Redevelopment Authority, we've done it once, and it was very minor. It's for a unit in the Johnsonia property that we recently acquired. And we had to buy each unit out. So
Which is a nightmare when you think about how
Yes.
complicated it was for the FRA to, so everybody.
2-year process.
A 2-year process.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that process?
sure.
And
So-
Johnsonia, one of the most beautiful buildings on Main Street, if not the most beautiful, historic, burned down in a fire, and then.
Yes, so 8 years later, we were asked by both the city and the majority holder of the units to consider purchasing the property. And our process is a little unique. We can't just go through a normal sale, even though we don't have the red tape like the city does.
Yeah.
We still have to get 2 appraisals, and that determines fair market value, and we have to make an offer in between those 2 appraisals. And then we went through the process of understanding how each unit holder was still paying a mortgage. So we had to contact each unit holder, pay out the offer to each of those people or families. And then what became a nightmare was finding this one person for that unit, and they moved to another country, and so we had to find them, and it was the start of COVID, so that added another layer.
Another level of complexity, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and for that person to get anything notarized, they had to go to the American consulate, and they didn't want to leave their home because it was COVID, and then they moved across the country where they were living, and then we couldn't find them again, so it was a
nightmare.
It
Yeah.
was a lot of detective work. So when we eventually found him, this person didn't really want to do anything with the property anymore because all he owed was $4,000.
Yeah.
So we took the property from him, and there was no
fight.
contention, no fighting.
Yeah.
And but it was only $4,000 that we took the property, or when I say property, it's the unit from. So it was a 2-year process for us to do, and we finally became the full owners in 2022 in January. And now we've tried to figure out what we wanted to do with the property, and we're working on an RFP as we speak to basically option the property out to see what people want to do for a development project. So, yeah.
So there's so much going on, and when I think of Main Street, you've got kind of 2 anchor institutions at either end. You've got the State University, Fitchburg State, and the Art Museum. Between that, I think, is right in the middle is the FRA at Boulder Drive.
Yes.
And I think most of our attention in terms of revitalization is in between the university and the Art Museum, and specifically housing density. But what do you see as those opportunities? You talk about how you used to get on Route 12 and drive up to New Hampshire, but as you drive through, and as what is the vision that that you have for Fitchburg's redevelopment and the role of the FRA plays in that?
So in terms of Main Street, I'd like to see the activation of the storefronts in any capacity. So we have some grant opportunities that we've created to help activate those places. Also, the residential units up above. I would like to see a Main Street as I've seen in the pictures from the history of Fitchburg once again. I don't know if it will ever happen, but I hope it does, and we're here to help with that. So.
Could you talk about Boulder Drive and the FRA's footprint there?
Yeah, that has been our crowning achievement, I think. We acquired that, so as many people know, GE closed in 1998.
Yeah.
Gave the property to the city, who in turn gave it to us, and that became our sole responsibility for up until now.
What was the FRA's home before that?
It was in City Hall, actually.
Okay.
Again, we were independent, but our home was there. So when we acquired it, we took it under our urban renewal plan. We actually our urban renewal plan became a actual living document when we acquired that, because we incorporated that property into that, and that became our really big focus for years. So we demolished a number of buildings to make way for parking. We redeveloped the major building, which is called Building 2, and that is multi-tenanted now. And so we've
Defense contractors, right? The
Yeah.
Registry of Deeds is in there.
Yeah, and the library is moving
library,
in there.
yep.
We have a small tech
City Hall
startup.
was formerly in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also have a National Science Foundation lab in there. It's like a Swiss Army knife, as I call it. And we're also in there. It's our home base. So we have 2 buildings remaining that we'd like to redevelop. Actually, we'd like to demolish one. It's an
Yep.
old power plant, and redevelop Building 3, which was the old machinist shop of GE. But we're always trying to find funding to do that because our resources are limited in that.
How is the FRA funded?
It's through our tenants in our building, but we also apply for grants, and we also get funding from people like you.
That's
so
right,
thank you
yeah.
very much. You've been so kind giving us some earmarks.
Well, one of my favorite stories about how the different entities and groups work together and really are rowing in the same direction in Fitchburg is, there's a state earmark that myself and Rep. Kushmarek helped get the FRA. But for the Fitchburg arts community and BF Brown, Newview had a significant financing gap that was brought on by COVID-related supply chain issues and just the price of construction materials. And Fitchburg arts community has been a 10-year slog. I think it's been something that was aspirational for a long time, but they were right there at the finish line to close financing and break ground. And I know we reached out to you, and the FRA and the board released that funding that was earmarked for housing development in the downtown to the Fitchburg arts community, Newview and Mark Doan, and was kind of the final straw that allowed that project to go forward. So thank you for that, right?
Yeah. Our pleasure.
Yeah. But it's nice that, you can imagine other communities or other people are under somebody else's leadership. They'd say, like, no, that's our money. We're gonna go do something else with it. So that's one of my favorite stories of collaboration. And the Fitchburg arts community is going to be incredible. I love just driving by and seeing it's an active construction site right now. And have you been through that building recently? Or?
No, I've actually never been through the building.
Really?
My first week, though, was the topping off ceremony where we all signed the beam, and I didn't know a soul, and here I am signing the beam.
And that was like 2.5 years ago, too, right?
Actually, 5.
5 years ago?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's certainly been a long slog, but just very exciting. Like a real tangible momentum for downtown, and I think it's really got the potential to transform kind of that, north of Main there. So can you talk more about urban renewal, and how does the FRA come up with an urban renewal plan? Where are we in that process right now? And how do you work with the board to develop what that vision for urban renewal is?
That is our
Really simple question, right?
Yeah. Many layers, though. So that the urban renewal plan is our guiding document. So an urban renewal plan is a 20-year evolving document, because we can amend it, because 20 years is a long time, right? So we can amend it depending on if we want to add a new building or a property into it. But what the process involves is it's really community focused. We get a community action, citizen advisory committee, excuse me, and they help guide the writing of the document. So they come up with the goals and objectives, and the board also works kind of in tandem with them, and they also vote on what the Citizen Advisory Committee came up with. So
and how big is the Citizen Advisory Committee?
So we just redid our urban renewal plan, so it's 2040 plan now, and we had 10 people on.
Gotcha.
And we interviewed people, we had people apply, and we really wanted a nice diverse mix. So we had people that lived here or worked here, older people, younger people, people that went to university and ended up staying here. So we wanted a really nice mix of folks, and they really contributed a lot. And in fact, they came up with something that I really appreciate. They really wanted an environmental focus to it, and they wanted to focus on the Nashua River and more green spaces, and I'm really excited to tackle that eventually. But getting back to your question, it is after the the guidelines are written, then it goes to a series of votes. And we went through planning board, the city council, then the last local approval is through our board, and then it goes to the state to what used to be DHCD, or Department of Housing and Community Development. Now it's, it's economic. It's a
livable communities and housing,
yes,
and it's a new acronym.
Yeah. So, and then they make the final approval. But then there's another layer. You have to go through a MEPA approval, which is the Mass Environmental Protection Act, and so that is a long process as well. And our plan was approved a year ago, and our MEPA was approved in August of this year. So it's a long process. It was about a 2-year process because COVID got involved again. Actually, it was a 3-year process, and COVID got in the way. But we're actually embarking on a new urban renewal district. We're looking at Lower Cleghorn, and we're squaring away the consultants for that right now.
Which is really exciting.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
And so, we talk and we focus a lot about Main Street, but the urban renewal plan includes other parts of the community. Can you talk about Lower Cleghorn and what are the other parts of Fitchburg that the FRA kind of has its eyes and hands in?
So currently, our current district only involves downtown, and when I say downtown, that also includes half of River Street up to about the Dairy Queen area, and then Water Street up into about where the flea market. I don't know the other. I guess it was a Halloween store at one time. Right there, it's for sale right now. So if you can picture those,
which is really the head of the rail trail, or kind of, right?
Yeah.
It's an access point to the rail trail now.
It is, yeah. And then it goes up to the middle school, and in terms of north, and then below Boulder Drive for south.
Gotcha.
So it's pretty expansive right now, but in terms of other areas, we just started looking at other areas, and I proposed to the board that we look at Lower Cleghorn because it is a beautiful area. I love the area. It has a lot of green space. It has a lot of good old structures that could just get some help from us, and we have the capability.
Lower Cleghorn, when you say Lower Cleghorn, you're talking about like the Bolorama and like down to the 50/50 in those mills down by the river?
Yes.
What else does Lower Cleghorn include?
Well, we're still, it would be up to the Citizen Advisory Committee and the board and people that want to take part in our public hearings and things like that to help determine the borders. But we envision.
It's where the old Ann Welch shoe was, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I think there's a couple of other, are there empty mills or certainly some underutilized?
Sure, and there's I think it's St. Joseph's Church up there, and the school, and there's a lot of potential up there.
And beautiful old buildings too, incredible facades. So what would be the vision for the FRA's involvement there? To
help out the local property owners and the business owners, because there's a few businesses up there, to help revitalize the area using a grassroots movement with the current people that live in and work in that area.
And how could the FRA facilitate that? Would it be through eminent domain? Would it be through a grant program to spur housing production or historic rehabs? So
we work pretty much through public-private partnerships. So we would help drive redevelopment with developers in that area, but we'd also work with the current building owners to maybe activate the spaces through our grant programs that we have, but we would extend it to that area because right now it's really focused on the Main Street area or downtown area. So we would want to extend those up there, or maybe create some new ones focusing just solely on that area as well. So we'd also maybe look to our delegation to help us out a little bit.
Certainly,
And we really want to make it a community effort too. So if anyone of the community wants to help us out and help reactivate the spaces, we'd work with them.
Can you talk about what's on deck right now? So what is the FRA actively engaged in terms of projects or RFPs, or and then maybe the follow-up would be what's next? But
right. So I talked about our two major ones. It's the Lower Cleghorn area for the urban renewal plan and the Johnsonia. We're also looking at working with developers along Main Street. We've given out a number of grants. We have a design grant for architectural or mechanical drawings. We've given out a number of those, and Main Street housing grants where the developers that have built these beautiful apartments on the upper floors, we've given money to.
Which is what we want to see up and down the street, right? I mean, tons of buildings, but sleepy second, third, and fourth stories. Yeah.
Right.
And they, they're places that I think historically were offices and professional offices, and there's a real opportunity, but need to, as the economy has changed and as downtowns and main streets have changed to turn that into housing, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we are also working on selling the Airport Road property.
So what's the Airport Road property? Because this is a major.
Right. So a lot of people know it as a sand pit site. We acquired that from the city. The city gave that to us in 2014, and we're working with a prospective buyer to sell it. It's definitely a unique property. It's one of the last large properties in the
properties.
Yes,
too, right?
in the city. In fact, in the area too. A lot of your warehouse developers and fulfillment centers and things like that, they're looking at this spot because it's one of the last.
And it's central,
spaces.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
It's near the airport.
The one central plan that the Chamber did a great economic development study 2 or 3 years ago, and it makes sense, right? But I mean, we've got advanced manufacturing, we've got healthcare, but logistics is one of the biggest growth industries, just as the way people shop changes. So. Very exciting, and that could also potentially be a pretty significant windfall for the FRA too.
Yes.
Right, money which could be reinvested into to Main Street or Lower Cleghorn, or so I guess that would lead us to this part of the discussion. Where would you like to see the FRA go, and where do you think are opportunities for collaboration between different stakeholders, and what resources do you need from people like me?
We could use all the money in the world, right?
Yeah.
But I'd like to see us use more as a tool, like we're supposed to be used more so, and just keep up with our partnerships with the main stakeholders in the community. We have a really good collaborative spirit amongst the stakeholders in the community.
And how big's the team at the FRA?
Small. It's really small. It's a facilities manager for Boulder Drive property. We have a business manager who's part-time, and she does the books and manages the office, and me. And so we're a small group, but we pack a lot of punch.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you think? Where would you like to see the FRA kind of in 5-10 years, or?
I'd like to see us grow as a staff and have more capability in the community. I'd like to maybe expand to another area as well, have another district, and maybe see us move to Main Street or something. I don't know. We love our property on Boulder Drive, but if there's somebody willing to rent our space, maybe we'd move to another, and maybe we'd redevelop that property, and then we'd move
and
there.
it makes the FRA more sustainable, and you guys can be kind of like flippers, right? Like go. I mean, there's so many properties up on Main Street that could use some FRA TLC. What's your favorite part of the community development process and in your role at the FRA?
I like it when people drop in and ask questions. I often get people that come in, believe it or not, and say, I've seen your sign for the first time just because I got lost. I thought this was where City Hall was. Because people still think City Hall is
they're going to think it's a library, right? They're going to be trying to check out books from your office, right? Yeah.
But then they sit down and say, what do you do? And I like being able to explain to them what we do and maybe help them out if possible. I've helped out many people apply for grants, especially during COVID. I remember I helped one struggling business write a grant just because that's what we do. We want to help. And I won them $10,000 to be sustainable during COVID. And we like to help, and we want to be there.
Could you talk a little bit more about what are those grant programs? You mentioned aid and assistance to small businesses, things to help and spur housing production. What are other things that flow through the FRA?
So those are our particular grants, but I also apply for grants through the state and through private opportunities too. And if I see one, I post it on our social media, and we have a Facebook and LinkedIn page. So I'll post those, and sometimes people will say, "I don't know how to do this. Can you do this or help me with it?" And I do. I actually love grant writing, so I like to sit down and work with them.
And you've got the technical acumen and experience to be able to do it, right?
Right. Yeah. So we're here to help. So that's my biggest thing. And I also like working with people that are coming in to develop for the first time, and they don't really know how to move through the process. And so, I mean, I like being the resource to point them to other resources.
It's really hard. The more development projects that I get involved in, I don't know how anything is built anywhere, right? I mean, things can be so cumbersome. We were on a meeting. We were talking about transportation yesterday with an advocacy organization here in the state. An 800-foot concrete platform cost $21 million and took 10 years to do. And it's like, how is that possible, right in 2023? But, I mean, we really need to make North Central as a region, not just business friendly, but to be able to help people who are coming and willing to invest, right? And everybody benefits from it. What's a favorite project that you've been involved in that you can kind of point to? And
gosh, I like them all. I would say, believe it or not, I love the food truck festival that we put on every year, because I like seeing people come and just enjoy themselves. And we work really in a collaborative spirit with that. We work with the city. We worked with in town Fitchburg, and this year we worked.
Did it rain this year?
I think it was misty.
Misty.
It seems like every year it's raining, but people still come, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Meagen Donoghue, Executive Director of the Fitchburg Redevelopment Authority, just want to thank you for all the work that you do, and so critical to moving Fitchburg and the entire region forward. Lots of exciting things going on, and I can't wait to see what the FRA continues to do. So thanks for all you do.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this month's episode, everybody. Please join us next month, and be well.